And this message will be coming from 1 Samuel chapter 30, starting at verse 13, which reads, David asked him, "To whom do you belong? And where do you come from?" He said, "I am an Egyptian, the slave of an Amalekite. My master abandoned me when I became ill 3 days ago." So what had happened, this is right at the last battle of Saul and the Philistines. David and his men were on the run from Saul because Saul had lost his kingship because he disobeyed God by letting Agag, king of the Amalekites, live. And Samuel, which the prophet, an old man, had to come and rebuke King Saul because he did not put Agag to death, because God had commanded Saul to completely wipe out the Amalekites. And they kept the goods, and they spared the king. So God was angry with Saul and had replaced him with a man after his very own heart, which was David. David, name pronounced in the Hebrew language, was David, which means beloved. The Amalekites, they were people that God had cursed over in the book of Exodus, chapter 17, starting at verse 8, when they came out and attacked the children of Israel as they were leaving out of Egypt. God promised that he would completely wipe the Amalekites from under the heavens. So when he told Saul, God told Saul to get up and go attack the Amalekites, that was supposed to be the fulfillment of Exodus chapter 17. But Saul had disobeyed God, and Samuel had came and put Agag, king of the Amalekites, to death. The Amalekites were descendants of Esau's son Eliphaz, over in Genesis chapter 36 at verse 12, which says, Esau's son Eliphaz also had a concubine named Timnah, who bore him Amalek. So the Amalekites were descendants of a man named Amalek. And what had happened was, when David was on the run from King Saul, because Saul had figured out that David was going to be his replacement as king of Israel. Saul did not want to give up the throne, and he pursued David. Where David had to go and live in the land of the Philistines. The Philistines were people who originated from North Africa. The Philistines were descendants of Mizraim. They were Egyptians who had left the land of Egypt and settled on an island called Crete. And then from the island of Crete, they migrated over to the land of Palestine, where they lived next to the Canaanites. So Achish, king of Gath, when David and his 600 men with him were on their run from Saul, they had came to Achish, and Achish let them live in the land of Ziklag. The other nations had heard about David and the 600 men that were on the run from their king. And the other nations had called David and his 600 men the Habiru. So one day when David had returned back to Ziklag, the Amalekites had done a raid before they got there and had stolen all of their goods, their wives, their children, and their elderly people. So David and his 600 men had wept heavily. Well, after they had finished crying, the men were thinking about stoning David. But David had required of the Lord, shall I pursue the Amalekites? He was asking for God's hand to be with him to give the Amalekites over into their hands. So they had went in pursuit of the Amalekites, and they ran into an Egyptian slave who had became sick, and his master had left him behind. So when they found the Egyptian slave, David and his men had gave the Egyptian slave food and water. And he had asked the Egyptian slave, "Who were you?" He said that I am a slave of an Amalekite. And David asked him, "Can you lead us to this regiment of the Amalekites?" The Egyptian had answered him and said, "Yes, I will, if you promise me that you will spare my life and not turn me back over to my master." So David and his men had pursued the Amalekites, and 200 of David's men could no longer go no further to track them down. So David left the 200 men at the Rabine, and him and 400 of his men, the men who were with David, were criminals, people who were running from Saul because they had been condemned. So they had all teamed up with David and was on the run with David in his pursuit from Saul. And they had came upon the camp of the Amalekites. The Amalekites were partying, they were drinking and dancing, rejoicing over all of the goods that they had stolen. And it was nighttime. David and his men had attacked the Amalekites, and they fought them all night long until the sun came up that morning, when they recovered their family and all of their possessions. And then the men grumbled, the 400 men who were David, and said that the 200 men who did not go with us to help us to fight, the ones who had got tired, that they was not going to divide the spoil with them, but only give them back their family members. But David said that that wouldn't be right, because God is the one who gave the Amalekites into their hands. So they wind up sharing with the rest of their Hebrew brothers.